Okay, I'm going.
Keep the red flag flying here.
Hello and welcome to Socialist Night Live. We have got a little bit of a crossover going on tonight, so something a little bit different. I'm going to start with Ben, who is here from Pint and Politics. Hi, Ben.
Hi. I'm not sure it's quite a brand yet, but yeah, I do Pint and Politics on a Sunday night. I've been doing it since December. Really enjoying it, actually.
That's really good. Just to let you know, people who are fans of Pint and Politics who are here tonight, this show you can chat live with us. So any comments that you put on will appear on screen in a few minutes' time if you start chatting away. And we've already got some comments coming in. So the comments will appear on screen and we'll try to answer them sort of in real time. We'll try and do our best. Sometimes we get a bit carried away. Also, we have another really special guest tonight. We've got Alison Carpenter. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Paul. How are you? I'm Alison. I'm Secretary of Windsor Labour Party, also part of the team that runs Save Our Socialist as well. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and also a little secret weapon that Socialist think tanks got up our sleeves when we get ourselves properly organised, but that's going to be fun when we do. So and also we've got Laura.
Hello, I don't need to do an introduction. I'm sure by now everybody knows who I am. Unless you want me to do one, Paul, you look busy.
Yeah, just something fell. It's fine.
Just do some DIY.
Why not?
All we've done is DIY today. It's been intense. I'm so tired.
Yeah, it's incredibly tiring. See, comments. So, just to explain to the people who are on the panel, you don't get to see what I see, so I can see exactly what's going on at the moment, and sadly you can't, but you do get to see the comments, so that's nice. I'm Paul, and I've had my COVID jab today, my second one, so let's see if I get some sort of side effects midway through the show. That'll be interesting. And some of us have just been watching, I'm not sure who saw it, but we've just had Lisa Collins on the show for our Origin series. I don't know if you all got to see any of that, but it was really good.
Yeah, I watched it. It was really good. Yeah, really interesting. She was great.
Yeah, she's spot on. It was really nice to talk about retail workers and how important they have been during COVID, because like they're sort of the forgotten people of the pandemic, aren't they? Because they had to go to work in those conditions, and that must have been frightening, really.
There's two of my family work, in retail, in supermarkets. It is scary, So they have a lot of support, really. They were given PPE eventually and things like that, but it did seem to be quite slow, and they've had to wait for their jabs and all that sort of thing. So it was good to hear from her, and I was surprised at how many of them are members of trade unions as well. She was saying it's quite high percentages.
Yeah, she was saying 80% Tesco, wasn't she? Was saying 80% Tesco membership. I don't know if that was a localised thing or a national thing.
I think, but it was good to hear.
Ostor have always had quite high density levels, particularly in Tesco, and they've managed to get some very good concessions for their workers. And I met Lisa actually last year or the year before, when we were doing a campaign around violence against retail workers and shop workers, and we went to Tesco's in concert. And it's a huge problem. Like even before COVID, people who work in supermarkets are just constantly abused and treated appallingly, and there's this kind of sense in which anything goes in a retail environment. A long time ago, I used to work in Waterstones, which is a different kind of retail environment, but we did get some people in there that really took some liberties, because you're behind the till, therefore you're kind of lower than them in terms of intellect and things. And actually, I mean, it's, you know, Waterstones, there used to be, you know, there was such knowledge behind the till as well. You know, people really, really knew their stuff, just as it would be in Tesco's. You know, if you talk to people in Tesco's who work there, they're incredibly knowledgeable about what their job is, and it's quite technical, some of it as well. So.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Lisa's interview tonight. I've known Lisa for years, and it's interesting that I didn't meet Lisa through political means or trade union means. She's a friend of a friend, and we went out and got drunk together one night. And it's such a pleasure when you realise that you can talk about politics with somebody on a night out when you're not really meant to be talking about politics. Yeah. And she's just lovely. And I thought her interview, the point she made about working class people and the fact that historically we'll watch the telly or we'll see MPs and think, oh, they're like up here. We could never do that. And I love the fact that she's arguing for more representation of working class people in Parliament, because at the minute, well, and for, let's face it, for pretty much ever, the people who represent us haven't got a clue what it's like to be working class. And the fact that we've, I'm pleased we've now got more Northern MPs, but it's not representative at all of the country. And she's absolutely right in saying that we need to encourage more people to get involved in trade unionism and through into politics as well, because we need our own people making decisions for us, I think. So she was spot on with that. I really enjoyed it. I love her stories as well. She tells lovely stories. Yeah, oh, and the one about a son who went into school and said one of the kids in school didn't have the PE kit, so they were like, right, well, you can't play then. So instead of leaving a kid out, our son was like, right, everyone, no one's doing it then. and they were trying to tell Lisa off, saying, can you have a word with them? She was like, no, I'm going to celebrate this. That's brilliant. I was like, yes.
I love this. A 6-year-old wildcat strike. It's brilliant. Incredible. Great comments coming in so far. Thank you so much. Jane saying Lisa was fantastic. Tim was saying it's great to see Alison on. So there you go. You got a fan there. And nice to see a few different people commenting there. Quantum Skyline was saying that all MPs should be from working class backgrounds. They certainly need to be better represented, don't they? You'd expect like 7% to be from private school backgrounds, but it's something really high, isn't it? I'm sure someone will stick that in the chat, the exact statistics. But we've got a question as well. Do you think that from Kat, who is also awesome, a great trade unionist, do you think that unionised workplaces would be able to provide a workers' chronology, thank you, of the pandemic? And she does think that. So yeah, do you think that unionised workplaces will be able to provide a workers' chronology of the pandemic?
I think what will come out of this pandemic, and it's a really kind of crucial time coming out of it. I mean, obviously people have been kind of hunkering down, trying to get through it and so on, but coming out of it, and I've Mary Foy, who I work for, the MP in Durham, she often says this, going back to some sort of normality is not the point. There's what COVID is exposed is the way that supermarket workers are treated. It is the disparities in health inequalities. It is the lack of respect being shown to public sector workers. It is fire and hire practices within the private sector. So I mean, I think it's really important, as unions are going to be so important coming out of COVID, because they're the ones that can make that argument. And like a chronology of all of those issues. And it's so hard actually to get your head around all of those issues, because they've been so massive, haven't they? Paul, you'd have experienced it within teaching as well. Obviously we had, the kind of forced, the forced return of school children and all of that stuff. And you don't want to lose that. You don't want to lose all of those issues and then how do we address each one? But it's like a massive agenda there, isn't there, coming out of COVID?
I think like when we discuss about things going back to normal as well, it's like it wasn't particularly normal before, was it? It wasn't very good. We had this like awful situation where where people were exploiting things, and I think what it's done is it's focused that that knowledge that we already knew anyway, that there's all this like corruption going on.
Never thought of joining a union, and things like that. So I think they're now looking at, oh, maybe I need to join a union because I might get made redundant. I might need some help, and I'm trying to sort of spread the word that everyone should join a union, regardless of what you do for your job, because they're there to support you, and it's great to be part of that union. I mean, the support I had was amazing. So
just a quick apology there, by the way. That we were having internet problems here, so broadband communism now, please. But yeah, there was a little bit. It was a problem at our end. So if anyone's checking their phones and things or their laptops and going, "Oh, what's happened?" It was at our end. So don't you worry. Back now, though.
Not enough power in one household, Paul.
Yeah, I know.
Broadband for all. That's what we need.
I was just going to say on the trade unionism thing, I come across a lot of people who are a member of a trade union but tend to use it for as an insurance policy, and it's just something that sits there in the background that they pay for just in case. I think what we need to be doing is not only recruiting people to trade unions, but also trying to get them active within those trade unions, try and get them to start using their voice and looking after each other and fighting for the rights of whatever workplace they're in. Because I really think we're coming to a period now where the 99% of us really do need to start being a collective. We really do, and the way to do that is through your trade union, because honestly we can't carry on down this path. We can't keep going because our rights are just getting decimated day by day, and COVID has been a gift to the Tories. We're not allowed out to fight about anything, and if this bill gets passed where we can't protest, then we're in a lot of trouble. We really are. So I think getting people active and teaching them the issues that we're experiencing at the minute is going to be our fundamental saviour. It's the only way forward now, I think.
But it's only really about, in terms of the potential of what trade unions can do, both in the workplace and in the community, it's only about 10%. So if you just seeing your trade union as an insurance policy, it's really just chipping, it's just the surface really, and there's a whole different there's a whole different way of viewing the union, which comes across in particularly with some of the smaller unions, the IWGB in London, and who do most of their stuff in London, and they talk about, they've kind of imported some views of trade unions and sort of attitudes towards trade unions from South America and actually the States as well, which is, we are the union, so like the members are the union itself, and then that obviously, like, at a very kind of small micro level, at the workplace level, and also like regionally, nationally, creates a whole different attitude. So people really feel engaged in it, and feel like it's theirs. They have a say over it, and that obviously, that, because we all know as socialists that collectivism is power, and actually, one of the things I think is really important is if you just take a kind of purely servicing approach to trade unionism, actually you'll do less of a job with providing those services for your workers, because for your members, because they will be constantly under attack unless there's like that organising strength as well. So it's actually a bit self-defeating. And actually, I think a lot of unions have clicked onto this in the last few years, but it was, when I was doing that organising academy work, it was a bit of a struggle. There was definitely an attitude of, oh no, the unions are here just to provide, insurance, representation, and that's it. And then, of course, what happened is that trade union membership fell off a cliff during the 1980s because of that kind of approach.
We've had a couple of comments, questions in there. And one of them I'm going to come to first because it's been really nice because we've been talking about socialism, we've been talking about trade unionism, and this is the first mention of the L word, which is the Labour Party, at the moment. Now, I think at the moment we need to be organising outside of the Labour Party because the Labour Party is not really, and this is my personal opinion, at the moment, the Labour Party is not listening to its members. Organising within the Labour Party has fallen on deaf ears. But I don't think we should really despair about that. I think this is an opportunity for us to work outside of Westminster because Westminster, I also think, is a bit of a closed shop as well. And someone mentioned closed shops in a different context as well. But, Westminster is an establishment system that's trying to stop change from happening. And I think within Labour Party have its own establishment systems to try to stop change from happening and stop members changing things. Certainly we see that at the moment. And the idea of working outside of that is really appealing to me at the moment. So a really good question there is, the comment was from Trudy Sellers, it would be nice if the current Labour Party followed the union model you're talking about. And Jane Strange has asked, are unions like Acorn the way forward? So the in-workplace model is really impractical for a lot of workers now, and I suppose that's right, the way workers have been separated from one another, and there are a lot of tricks to try to stop the power of trade unions, aren't there? Alison, Acorn, do you like them?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've got a local branch of Acorn in the Reading area. And as a person who rents, it's great to have that support as well. And definitely, I've just been given notice actually on my rental, and actually we've been given 6 months notice, which is something good. I guess that would have been normally 2 months. But I think that a lot of our trade union colleagues are actually involved in the Acorn rental thing as well. And but I don't know about the Labour Party, and they don't really seem to support very much at the moment, do they? In terms of helping, people who are losing their jobs, people who are having to lose their houses and things like that. So I think Acorn and places like that are really coming to the forefront to help people who need it.
Mm-hmm. Laura?
I mean, people who watch our show know, are pretty clued up on what's been happening in the Labour Party recently, so I'll not go over old ground, but I've found it really liberating to be able to, on our shows that we do and through the banner group and other things that we do with community groups, it's been really liberating to be able to have an opinion and not have to worry about the words you use to share that opinion and not worry about having to be kicked out of something. So that's been really lovely for me, and it's given me a bit of hope and a bit more fight, because I was getting to the point where I was like, I'm sick of this, don't want to do this anymore, because it was soul destroying. So I think for the minute, yes, outside of political structures is the way forward. It's the way to build collectivism and solidarity, which is sorely needed if we are going to change anything. And eventually, yes, that will filter into changing the Westminster bubble, which absolutely needs to be done, because that's where the power lies, and we need to tackle that power. But before that, we need to empower ourselves and engage with each other. So community groups, local. I mean, you can make such a difference locally by joining a local community group who just want to help other people, whether that be like a knitting circle or a book club, something that just gives people an outlet, that brings people together. Start there and go on from there. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I'm going to be careful on Ben for this one, because Ben is in a slightly awkward position on this one. Can't be as candid as we are, but it's really interesting as well to see. By the way, I noticed Quantum Skyline as well, talking about being from Scotland. Actually, Scotland's one of the things Socialist think tank haven't really done, so we'll probably we've got a few connections in Wales, I think, and we've done Ireland, and we've done the Isle of Man. We did England the other day. We actually did some English socialism the other day to try to reclaim the idea of England isn't just a place for angry people, you know. There's a big socialist history there. So get in touch with that on that front, and we'll see what we can do something for Scotland as well, because I'd really like to do that, because I think Scotland is such a hotbed of proper socialism, and the fact that the Labour Party allowed that connection to go and just took those votes for granted for years, I find that absolutely appalling. Em's the Socialist as well remind me of something here. I've seen Em's going out on all sorts of different campaign and going for he's standing for council at the moment, and it's great to see so many actual socialists standing within the Labour Party as well. So let's not trash the Labour Party too much, because there are some really, really great people in there. So that's it. Ben?
Yeah, so I mean, I thought you were going to say go easy on me because it's my mum asking the question, but my mum doesn't hold back on me, and that's probably partly why I am like I am. So I've got to thank her for this question. So yeah, starting on the Labour Party. So the organising model, I do think that is relevant to the Labour Party, and I do think that it's probably the reason why I would stay in. I totally understand, why people are frustrated. I understand why people are leaving as well. And I think it's an absolute indictment, what Laura said there, about people being afraid to have an opinion. And I think that that's the thing that really, really is damaging, when people feel not comfortable in their own party. And I know that that's... that's a feeling for a lot of people. What I would say, though, in defence of the idea of staying in, is that it's a bit like what I said about the trade union, because not all trade unions are grassroots, radical, doing, getting out on the streets. You have to make them that. And it's the same with the Labour Party. I wrote an article ages ago, which wasn't very popular at the time with the party hierarchy under Ed Miliband, but it was basically saying, look, there's loads of socialists in the Labour Party, but the problem is that we've got our cards, our party cards in our back pocket, and that is it. And we're kind of not asserting our power within the Labour Party. And if we did, we might see some change. And obviously that was in 2013, 12, 13 or something around that sort of time. And it was around the time when the bedroom tax was coming up as well. So it was, you could see the little sparks of people sort of getting together and actually demanding, that Ed Miliband came out against the bedroom tax, and it took him a year to actually do it officially, and it was so frustrating. But from those, there was a kind of seed there for the Corbyn movement, I think, and it was partly because people realised that they could actually change things within the party if they got together, and so. We set up Red Labour just a few years before that, but during the Ed Miliband period. And one of the things about Red Labour was just to say, look, we can do this if we actually band together and if we organise from below. Don't think of it in terms of, in a way, ignore the leadership, because that's not the party. The party is the members. And of course, we had some good fortune along the way, which brought us to the Corbyn moment, I think. One being the Falkirk situation, which ended up with one member, one vote, which I can remember going to a meeting opposing that. I can't remember the exact date, but just before it, because we were socialists, we were mobilising against that because we thought it was taking the trade unions out of the out of the equation. And actually what it did was we should have seen really that it flipped it totally on its head. And it was a little bit of negativism in a way, that we thought that the members weren't socialist enough to change the party. And actually it was a little bit more tricky than that, because when I was talking to Alex Nunn a few weeks ago, and he pointed out that actually a lot of the Corbyn vote came from existing members, people who were there in 2015. So they had been sitting there. And I was a bit patronising because I think I called them people who were sleepwalking through the Labour Party, which is not, I probably should have used a different word. But that was kind of the point, that, when you're not active and you don't make demands, then nothing changes. I know it's not as simple as that when people are being attacked, and and there's all these other things going on. And I just want to say very quickly, sorry, Paul, a bit just about the trade unions, because I'm so like I'm such a big advocate of trade unionism, and it's all of those kind of attitudes that I talk about there in the Labour Party, and the foundations of what we try to do with Corbyn were on trade union organising principles. It was like, well, you organise people, you spot leaders, you encourage people, you talk about you talk to the grassroots, and you get feedback and so on. So that all came from kind of a trade union point of view. So I think that Acorn are brilliant, like really, really good. And I think totally should encourage Acorn. But I think we should also encourage that kind of attitude within the trade union movement. So I think things like the Unite Community branches are superb and a really, really good idea. And I think they need to be, even more resourced, because trade unions can have such a big impact in the community. And also then that community then gives strength to the trade unions in the workplace. So I think there's lots of different models out there. And I think unions are definitely starting to understand community organising a lot more as well. So I think there's I don't think it's an either or with Acorn or the kind of traditional trade union, although I do accept that it's the workplace and the economy and especially with the gig economy has changed so much that absolutely unions do have to adapt.
Yeah, I think it's about trying to unite people, and going in the same direction regardless. So Acorn, brilliant, and then Unite Community, that Kat's just mentioned in the comments there as well, absolutely brilliant. And what we're trying to do here at Socialist Think Tank as well is to have people thinking about these things and not getting bogged down too much in that like establishment system. The establishment isn't going to deliver us change. We need to change the establishment, which is a big challenge. So we're trying to bring people together, and we have had discussions about like the Northern Independence Party, who some people really agree with because we've got members in Socialist Think Tank, and you can join and you can be a member for free, or pay. It's up to you. You'll still have equal membership, but it's we've had discussions about whether we agree or disagree and so on, and we don't really want the conversation to be about Westminster. We want it to be about something else. We want it to be about class. We want it to be about people coming together, because the rich people, the establishment, they know it's a class battle. They know that they're looking after their class all the way, and we're spending a lot of time arguing with one another, and maybe we shouldn't be. Alison, with regards to the Labour Party, how's the Save Our Socialist thing coming, and how are people feeling in that movement?
Well, so I mean, the reason I'm still in the Labour Party is really for the local area, because I feel that we do have a sense of community. And someone put in the chat about the lack of people who attend meetings. I mean, we struggle to even get probably 5% of our members to even come to, even on Zoom, to come to a Zoom meeting. We get good speakers each month and things like that. So it's really frustrating that, we go to a lot of work and a lot of people just don't bother. And then, even when we have an election, and, you probably get 10% of the members out and things like that. So I do wonder why, some people even bother being a member, because they, we don't ever meet them, they don't get involved. So I'd say, if you are a Labour member, just get involved in your local community, whatever that might be. Be a council candidate, get involved in parish councils and things like that, because that's why I'm, still in the Labour Party right now. But yeah, with Save Our Socialists, we've got a few people who were suspended have now been reinstated. So, that's quite good. I've got a few numbers. Out of the 27 chairs, 14 have been reinstated, 6 out of 19 secretaries, and 7 out of 18 of the other officers. So it's moving in the right direction. Obviously, Jeremy Corbyn still hasn't had his whip restored. So we're obviously working on fighting for that, and to get all the other officers reinstated as well. So I think we are sort of talking that hopefully we're at the end, towards the end of our campaign. But I think it's been, it has been successful. I think that, we've given a good voice for those that have been suspended. We've had some good legal advice for them and and things like that. But a lot of them have had a letter that have said, yes, you are reinstated, but you've been really naughty, so you're going to be in trouble for the next year. We're putting a red line on your account, as it were. So but yeah, I think so we're still pushing forward to get the whip reinstalled for Jeremy, and also to get all the other officers, the remaining ones, reinstated as well. I don't know why it's taken so long. It seems to just take forever. And we do wonder whether some of those officers have now missed their AGMs, so they're no longer able to be the chair or secretary because they were suspended when the AGM happened, and so you wonder whether the timing was done on purpose or not. So it's all pretty shocking, really.
One thing that I think about, we've become normalised to suspensions and expulsions and manoeuvres, really, and what I've said, several occasions is, it just struck me then when Alison was talking about what people might have missed while they've been suspended, and it's not like being suspended from your Netflix account. It's like this is serious stuff, and it means an awful lot to people, and people don't just become the secretary or chair of their local CLP or their branch without being really, really committed. And what have we done to them to do that? And I do think that that's a real lack of a duty of care, and we're not, and that's even before we start talking about the mental health implications of all this, because when things really matter to people, you take it away from them, especially in the middle of a pandemic. That we don't know basically how that would help, how it would affect somebody's mental health. And I'm sure for a lot of people out there to be treated like that, to have the stigma of being suspended, there's obviously been a variety of different reasons why people have been suspended, but even the stigma of that, really might drag somebody down, and that's what I worry about more than anything. I think it's like the individual stories of people. The politics we can deal with, but actually when you start affecting people's mental health in that kind of way, I think that's a real problem.
And they know they're doing it as well, because with the suspension letters comes a phone number for the Samaritans. So they know that what they're doing is damaging. And I think especially when, I've not been suspended, touch wood, so I haven't had one of those letters, but I'm led to believe that a lot of them don't even give you any reason why. They just go, right, you've been suspended, we're investigating you. Bye. And then you don't hear anything. That must be absolutely awful. Yeah. And Ben, you're absolutely right in what you're saying there. The duty of care is just like completely gone when they can just do that to people. And like I say, with the fact that they had the Samaritans information in there, they know exactly what they're doing. They know how bad it is.
And some CLPs have been completely decimated, without the chair and the secretary. Other people have tried to fill in, they don't know the systems, and, obviously the secretaries had their, all their rights revoked, so, they can't really help. And, so some have just been completely decimated, and some have elections, coming up in a couple of weeks. And, so it's seriously hampered them as well. It's just shocking. I don't really understand. I don't understand it,
It's weird as well. Where's the line? So I've often thought, and I was definitely taken in by the stay and fight thing. I've not really seen much fight. That's the worry for me. The stay and fight. But what we're fighting against, like they've literally kicked Jeremy Corbyn out of the party, and then they and then like when he was allowed back in the party because there was no reason to, Keir Starmer withdrew the whip. Where's the line? I want to know where the line is, because we at what point do we fight? Because a lot's happened here. A lot's happened in the Labour Party. And, in the Poland's ridiculously bad, and, the leadership's ridiculously appalling, and no one's saying anything about it. And we're just like, are we even waiting for something? Because I do really worry about what's going to happen.
Yeah, I do wonder about that, and I wonder about the lack of fight, and also the effect of demoralization, because I think, we set our sights pretty high. I mean, it's only, 18 months ago, some of us might have been thinking that we were about to create a socialist Labour government, and with Jeremy, a prime minister, and that is a hell of a, I suppose, like the psychological drop from that position to where we have been, within 6 months or a year of that happening. I think that's hit people really hard. And I think that's probably knocked the stuffing out of quite a lot of people, although they might not see it like that. But and also it comes out in anger as well. So I mean, and I think Paul, you mentioned before about not kicking each other and not attacking each other, and I think that COVID on top of these defeats, and that kind of the level of expectation that there was within the movement, especially amongst a lot of young people who, maybe, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been like through really, really bad times, and incredible defeats before I've joined the wrong party. It's been a complete mess. I've had to kind of, pull back from things and start again. And, so I'm kind of used to it a little bit. And I don't think it hit me quite as hard, although obviously working for Laura Pidcock, and us losing the seat there was really, really bad. But I think for a lot of people who've come into it and with all that enthusiasm, and then to have that knocked out of them, I can sort of understand why people aren't fighting back. But I do think that whether it's via different routes, whether it's through community organising, whether it's through the kind of little things that build confidence locally, whether it's through your trade union or anti-austerity movements, or whether it's through the Labour Party, I think we have to start putting back that confidence within people.
I've just seen a comment coming here. It's quite an interesting one. We never get asked about this. Being from Sedgefield, it's a good one. So Joe McCluskey briefly read on the Tribune website about Blair's version of a mass party. Being from Sedgefield, what's the legacy of the Sedgefield model today? Now, I did look into this at one point as chair of Sedgefield CLP, and Blair did want a mass party. What we found, and Laura, I think I'm going to bring Laura in on this one, in Sedgefield Labour Party when we joined, and how it was, and the fact that members weren't engaged. So the legacy of the Sedgefield model was to absolutely trash the Sedgefield model, and then because the idea of the Sedgefield model was to have a mass membership, and then it was exported elsewhere around the country, and then they seemed to change their mind and they wanted to contract, and they wanted to have this centralised power system. So Laura.
That's the first time I've heard of the Sedgefield model, and it is not what I recognise to be Sedgefield Labour Party at all.
It is
Talk
a bit
about
now.
A closed shop. It is now, yeah, but bloody hell. When we first came here, like, it was all the doors were locked. You weren't allowed in. You weren't allowed to speak. In fact, we actually got approached at I think we were at a Durham Labour Left meeting or something, and we spoke to a member from Wingate, where we now live, and we were like, "Oh, we're about to move there," and he was like, "You should come and join our Labour Party," and we're like, "Oh, okay, great." And then we quickly learned that he was very left and no one would talk to him. So we started organising. We found other left people, and the spider web started, and we all got together. And the first meeting Paul ever chaired was our first meeting we'd ever gone to. We went and just decimated the right wing there, because we just brought in all these people who'd never really felt welcome at meetings, and they were like, "Right, come on, let's do this." And so it's been quite left wing since then. But no, the Sedgefield model wasn't a thing. Maybe that was like a PR stunt or something, but it certainly wasn't like that when we got here. You weren't, I mean, I'm pretty sure they didn't even advertise a lot of the meetings. Yeah. It was all like one building, and the MP and his friends ran everything, and that was it.
Tony Benn described New Labour as the smallest party in British history, and I think that's absolutely right, because it was literally, the 5 or 10 people around Tony Blair, and I think that is, unfortunately, that is an aspect of a model within the Labour Party, and because of the electoral success of Blair, people think that it's because of that, and they think that we can't have a mass party, we can't have a democratic party, because that would ruin, our electoral chances. And I think that's really, really short-sighted when you think about, all the great things that have happened over the last 5 years. So even if you're not an advocate of Jeremy Corbyn's socialism, which actually I think probably quite a small number of the Labour Party would actually oppose the policies, but put that aside, if you're not a supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, you can at least acknowledge that there's been this kind of huge upsurge of hope and grassroots activity and enthusiasm, and people turning up for meetings, and people doing things in the local community, people campaigning, people trying to make changes. Okay, not always successful, but to ditch all of that, and to go back to some sort of model that we can kind of recreate 1997, I think that is really, really myopic. I think I worry that is the plan. I mean, I think there's probably people within Starmer's office and beyond that have a bit more of a sophisticated take than that. I hope there are, but I would definitely I would plead with them actually to understand the good things that have happened over the last 5 years.
Yeah,
So
I've got to say on that it does seem to be like people are bringing up the past all the time. Well, Blair was elected, so that was 97. Things were different then. We've had this. The landscape has completely changed in the last 5 years. Completely changed. We've now got people who are engaged who've never been bothered about politics before. The age demographic of people interested in politics and making changes completely changed. We're a much, and I hate the term broad church, but we are a much broader church now with the people who are interested and want to make a change. And I think for that reason, we can't just. The Labour Party have thrown away the Jeremy Corbyn years, the leadership, but we can't. That whole movement needs to have been for something, and if we can just find a way to re-engage those people who were just so enthusiastic, and you saw them out in their thousands on the streets, we need to move on. I mean, I'm always going to bring up Maggie Thatcher. I can't let that past go on what not to do, but we need to stop looking at the battles we've won along the way and start looking about the lessons we've learned along the way. And the whole Jeremy Corbyn movement, that whole thing, the policies was brilliant. Obviously, people have lost a lot of hope, and like Ben said, they've had the stuffing knocked right out of them. But if we can find a way to re-energize those people and remind them that movement was important, and that is, we should be shaping our politics towards that, the more the merrier in my eyes. That's where we should be going. But it's really hard to do because, as everyone sort of commented, it's, at the minute we just feel a bit like, oh God, what is the point?
I think in Sedgefield as well, we were a microcosm of what was going on in the party, and I think we had a greater understanding of what was going on. So when we took over all the officer positions in the CLP, we did not have a group of socialists fully behind us. They knew we were socialist, and they knew from my speech, etc. They knew where we stood politically, but they just hated hated what had gone on in their local CLP. We got people allied, we got people together who were not necessarily all politically identical, but they voted to try and get something to change and try to get something better. And I think we understood that we could have always fallen back into Starmer's hands, because I think people recognise with Owen Smith and 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 in the leadership election where Jeremy first got elected in 2015, that the Labour Party had lost its way, and this like kind of establishment. And again, Ray, thank you for reminding me the establishment is not just Westminster, but there is an establishment within the Labour Party as well, and there's establishments all over the country doing all sorts of different things. But the way they had behaved, people found that absolutely appalling. People just wanted their say, and I think they saw Jeremy Corbyn as bringing that as well. So it wasn't just socialist ideas, it was something else. It was just fairness and having party democracy. That's what they were into. And then we got all these young people enthused, and now we've got the situation where Starmer's like, well, the first thing we need to do is really upset the young people, make them find politics really, really boring, and I'll go and pour myself a pint, and I'll be working class with my little pint in Hartlepool. And, and we've just gone back to this awful model. It's just crap, politicians pulling pints behind bars. I want to see them mopping up sick me. If they want to do a working class job, go in a pub and mop up some sick and have a photo of you just like with a mop, like really knackered. And then someone the other day was saying like pulling bottle caps off the floor and it's all sticky and stuff. The boss would always come down, wouldn't they? Like when you worked in a bar, the boss would come down if someone was important was in, and they'd pull a few pints because that's the easy job, that's the nice job, and I hate that when they pretend to be working class. I wonder what he would do. Or Laura, can we do that joke that we were talking about the other day about, imagine if he met some sex workers.
You can say what you like.
Yeah, maybe avoid that one for now, but like imagine if he did, and he just like, right, well, I've been meeting these sex workers, what would he do? Would he pull a pint with them? What would he do? Anyway, sorry. Kind of got off on a tangent there. Alison, I'm going to bring you in.
Oh, okay. I don't know much about your Sedgefield, what was it called, project? Yeah. So.
Yeah, Tim said he'd write a book about it, by the way. So,
yeah, Tim needs to write a book. We'll read it.
Yeah, but like, how did you feel? Like, was this like limited to Sedgefield, or did you see that there was this coalition of people who weren't necessarily all like self-declared socialists, but they were just sick to death of the way the party was being run?
Yeah, and I mean, we pretty much got socialist executive, I would say, and our CLP. We're quite small CLP. We live in Windsor. It's probably like the most conservative area in the country. But I think we got elected because we organise and we get people together and we arrange, good meetings for people and try and be all inclusive, actually, of left and the right of the party. And I think we've stayed fairly steady with our number of members, and we've lost some really good socialists. It's really sad that some of them have just decided to go. Mainly, when Jeremy lost the whip, a lot of people just decided to go. We told them to stay and fight, but they decided to leave. So it's really sad. Quite a lot of new members, quite a few of them we've never seen. They're obviously just involved for their own reasons. But we definitely had the most members we ever had, during the Jeremy Corbyn time. We had and so many young people. It was really good to get so many young people engaged, and I just feel it's really sad because I think a lot of them have lost hope, and we need to just keep that hope, glimmer of hope that things will get better.
I think it's really interesting that about 27 minutes ago, Paul was all being smug about how we haven't even mentioned the L word.
We go down rabbit holes, don't we?
Yeah. But sorry, Paul. One thing that I was brought up in Sweden, which I think we talked about when we did the Socialist Origins thing, and it affected me a lot actually because it was there till I was 9. Like when you romanticize your childhood, obviously a little bit as well. But I was there during the 70s. So a lot of the things that I've learned, and obviously I went back and kept thinking about, my childhood in Sweden. So I basically saw like a left-wing social democratic model, not socialism really. I mean, it was social democracy. And obviously people who maybe have lived in Germany and Denmark and Finland and, and a lot of kind of Northern European countries would would feel the same way, that they've seen a kind of positive side of kind of a left or left centre social democracy and what that's done for our society. You know, you talked about fairness before, and there is that kind of like thread throughout those societies. And what I don't understand is when we go back to that kind of like flag waving, you know, pulling a pint behind the bar, being a British bloke, and all that sort of stuff. Why do they waste their time on all of that when actually what people really want is a decent job? When I was brought up in Sweden, there was a gym that you just walked into basically, and it was for the community, a very small community that we lived in, and that gym was there for that community. And you had classes there, you had a swimming pool, you had a sauna. I love the sauna, and you just walked in, and that was, you know, and everybody looked after it. And I know that's kind of like, it does sound a bit romantic and stuff, but actually those sort of things can be achieved by a good social democratic state. So, and a lot of what Jeremy was saying was that kind of politics. And obviously there's a further stage. I'm a socialist, so I would argue to go further and further all the time, you know, to have more equality, to have, more public ownership and all of that sort of stuff. But within the Labour Party, surely those are the two choices. and I don't understand this kind of like going down this route of kind of, it's blue Labour. That's what you call it. I mean, they keep trying to revive blue Labour, and I feel like saying to them, like, blue Labour's gone. It was gone with the immigration mugs. Stop it now. But you know but they do keep going back to that as if that's some sort of magic bullet to getting the British public on side, when actually they should be looking to these social democratic economies that are not perfect at all. I mean, I don't mean that. But what I mean is they're a hell of a lot better than what we've had in this country for the last, 3-4 decades, since Thatcher. And I don't understand why they don't spend more time talking about that.
It's interesting you say that, because we just did an interview with Grace Blakely, and the parts I could understand were really interesting. And towards the end, she was talking about how we need to live in a society where the things people need, like actually need just to get through the day, transport, social care, all sorts of things like that, should just be free, because then we get given the opportunity to flourish and given the opportunity to try and do things we want to do, and the whole society is happier and more productive because of it. That to me is absolutely spot on and makes common sense, but we've constantly fed this, well, actually that's not even possible because we couldn't afford it. But we can afford to send people to war all the time and build massive nuclear weapons, and we always find money to kill people. I know that's a popular cliche, but we do. It is possible. The problem is we have, and this is going to send us down another rabbit hole, I'm sure, but we've got a complete elitist media, and they're all these people are the same people who run the media, who run the massive conglomerates, people you will never have heard of, who own all the money. And I'm not talking about rich footballers, I mean billions. They all control what's happening in this country. They all control the narrative that people are allowed to hear, and so people take that on and go, well, that's not possible, you're just being silly, oh, you're going to bankrupt us, and and it's that we need to tackle. We need to be talking to people and go, no, it is possible, we can do it, there's bloody loads of us. If we do it together, we can. And it's so frustrating. I'll just touch quickly on I don't know, was it last night or the night before, me and Paul watched 2 short films that are up for Oscar nominations, and they were like sort of indictments on the world. One of them was about a Palestinian father just trying to go and buy a fridge.
It's called The Present, that one. The
Present. And the other one was about a black man in New York just trying to go home to feed his dog. And both of them just, God, I've never been so angry. And of course, as is always the case when I watch things like this, I was in floods of tears for about half an hour after because I'm just so angry at the world. But these things can be changed. We don't have to just accept them, and we shouldn't just accept them. We're far too busy othering these people and looking after ourselves and being told this, that, and the other. It's all interlinked. Everything is because we're being controlled by the elite, and it's really annoying. We need to change it.
Yeah, the other one was Two Distant Strangers.
You should watch them. Everyone watch and go and watch them. They're both on Netflix. They're really upsetting, but they're really, really powerful and really well shot and really well acted and just unbelievable. And both of them should win an Oscar. So
yeah, most people have Netflix now, don't they? So I'd recommend those two. Have either of you seen that, Ben or Alison?
No, I haven't. No, I'll look them up. Yeah.
So one of them's just someone who lives in the West Bank, and it's about him going to try and buy a present for his wife, and the difficulties that he has. He takes his little daughter with him, and just doing the most mundane thing. Like he's not even buying like a really expensive, lovely present for his. It's probably a little bit expensive, but it's like it's a mundane household appliance that he's going for, and the struggles that he faced in order to get there.
It's awful.
Honestly, like you can't, you wouldn't think you'd be in tears over someone going to try and buy a fridge, but you know it's painful. And then the other one's it's like Groundhog Day, really, but if you were in America and black and just going about your business and there was a policeman there, it's really good. So recommend those two. We have a couple of questions in that I'd like to go to. There was one about Scottish independence. Like I think, what do we think about Scottish independence? It seems increasingly likely. What do we think? You know, do we
at the minute? I'll go if they can move the border down.
Yeah, but then there's all those lovely socialists down south. We'd lose Alison then. We'd be in a different country to Alison. So.
She can come and live with us.
Yeah,
more the merrier.
I live with a Scotsman, and he's probably, well, actually, he wasn't pro-independence during the last referendum, but he probably would be now. Obviously, he lives here, but so he probably won't get a vote. But you know, I think it should go to a vote because circumstances are different now to when we had the last referendum. You know, obviously, well, we've had Brexit and, you know, the politics and the different things that are going on. So yeah, I think they should have another vote, really.
Ben?
I think I mean I'd probably agree that I would be fairly supportive of Scottish independence. So I think I would probably be. I think there was a kind of radical independence group that were quite active and unfortunately got kind of marginalised by the, you know, understandable support that the SNP got from but there is a socialist independence movement, and I think that that got sidelined a little bit, and I think that I think in a way, like the whole Better Together stuff was just a disaster. You know, busing people up to march through Glasgow, wasn't it? And the Labour Party played that so badly, and I think that probably fueled independence, you know, support as well. And I suppose on one level, I think it would be damaging for us in England to lose Scotland, and obviously we kind of I mean, I identify with Scotland so closely. I mean, it's you know, we go to Scotland a lot. My favourite place is Edinburgh, but we also go to the Western Isles and stuff, and we talk and the Hebrides and I just love it, and I love the attitude there, and a bit what I was saying about Swedish kind of. You wouldn't necessarily call it politics, but like a cultural thing, where there's a kind of sense of fairness and a kind of at least an aim towards equality, and I think that's quite strong in Scotland. So, you know, when people get very angry about Scottish independence, I feel a bit defensive of that, because I think that actually, if you were in Scotland and you were being ruled by, you know, and you have to suffer all of the ridiculous kind of right-wing governments that we've had, and also failed by the Blair government as well. You know, I think we shouldn't be snotty about independence. I think we should at least try to understand it. I don't agree with. I think the SNP is a very complex beast. So there's some real right wingers in the and kind of tartan Tories basically within the SNP, but then there's also some very good left wing and trade union supporting MPs as well. That to be honest, we do an awful lot of kind of work behind the scenes with in Parliament. So it's a mixed bag, but I would say I think Jeremy's kind of like instincts were probably to support another referendum, but he could never quite say that, partly because of the pressures on him from the Scottish Labour Party, which is but I think it's such a mess really, and Scotland should be like it should be the place where a left-wing Scottish Labour Party should do so well, and obviously we're so far away from that. It's incredible.
I have to say that in a far less articulate way, I think Scotland should absolutely have the right to have a choice. I can't see any reason why they'd want to stay here. They had the option of going at the minute, wouldn't you go? But also, I would just say, oh, for God's sake, don't leave us with this lot by ourselves. On a purely selfish note, I don't want to be left on this island by myself with them. We need as many people as we can get.
On the better together stuff, Ben, and I'm gonna agree with Laura here on the don't leave us here with them. On the better together stuff, like, why didn't we campaign as the left and as the Labour Party? Like, okay, right, brilliant. Like, how dare anyone say that people don't have the right to self-determination? Like, how dare people say, I don't know why that's even a question about whether they should be allowed to have. Why should people in England be deciding whether someone should be allowed to decide whether they want to be part of a union or not? That is entirely the people of Scotland's choice, and whatever they decide will be what should happen. However, I would have just gone down the road of, look, Scotland, we love you, we want you to be part of us, and instead it was like you'd be so much financially worse off if you were, and it was terrible, and like practically holding hands with the Tories, and what a terrible campaign that was, the Better Together campaign, and really the final nail of the coffin for Labour in Scotland. And why would anyone in Scotland? That's where everyone says that Red Tory appeared during the Corbyn years. It didn't. It appeared during that referendum where they kept on calling like the Labour Party Red Tories, because that's what they were going. And whenever I go to Scotland, if I go and see like Celtic play or something, people are interested in the Labour Party there. They're interested in left-wing politics. They're interested in socialism, and they'll talk to you about those things, and they believe in those things, and why aren't we appealing to people who like socialism north of the border? Because there are a lot of them. We don't want to see Scotland leave because they're a good ally. I don't want to be left with a more right-wing government. There's a chance there, but absolutely blown. It's an absolutely awful situation we've got on. I've rambled a bit there.
The only doubt that I would in my mind about some of that would be that there is this kind of, like, I suppose you'd call it like a more kind of Marxist argument that of unity amongst the working class across borders, and I know a lot of socialists that I completely respect and not part of the kind of Better Together, which is quite a kind of centrist campaign really, but they didn't support that, but they do oppose the idea of a kind of nations like splitting off, and the kind of increasing division amongst the working class. So that's been the argument around the Northern Independence Party as well, which I kind of I definitely kind of understand that argument, that if you keep dividing people into nations, regions, where it's towns, and obviously that does happen, and it's not always, so I believe in kind of national independence, and there's been some throughout history, there's really, really important national independence struggles, that have freed freed people all over the world. And then there's the other side to it, which is that there is a kind of ugly side to nationalism and even to some aspects of regionalism as well. Even though I'm very proud to be part of the Northeast, I do get it when people say, "Yeah, but you're trying to set the Northeast against London, for instance, and there's huge poverty in London, which there's huge disparity, and some of the worst poverty actually in Jeremy's constituency in Islington, some of the worst poverty in the country, and the biggest kind of levels of inequality as well. And so we've got to be careful about the way we talk about it, but I don't think that kind of fundamentally changes the idea that people have the right to their independence and at least the right to have a say on it.
Right, so I'm going to move the conversation on a little bit. We did get asked before the show if we had any thoughts about football. Now, I'm sure Ben. I've seen Ben comment on this one. Alison, I'm going to go to you first. Have you any thoughts about like the way people have, maybe just even the way people have been reacting lately about the new Super League and the elitism and the anger that they've got towards the idea of this Super Elite League?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was great that people did, protest and stood up for their clubs, and I mean, it was disgusting really that they was just so greedy that they didn't think twice. They just signed up without asking the fans or thinking about the consequences. So it was great to see so many people protesting and actually that it got overturned really quickly. It's just disappointing, I suppose, that they were sort of so greedy that they did that in the first place. But yeah. I mean, I'm quite a big football fan, but I do support Southampton, so that might be an oxymoron.
Well, Ben will be laughing at me for supporting Sunderland anyway, so that's.
I want to hear all of your stories, Paul.
Oh God! Did you want to taste my tears? Go and catch your tears. I'll have a drink of them later. Laura, did you have any thoughts on this? Because I know we've barely discussed this one. So.
No, we haven't discussed it at all. I think. Well, I mean, for me, football hasn't been a working class game for a long time. It's far too expensive. It's not what it once was or should have been, in my opinion. But I'm actually quite pleased that this happened because I think it's sort of opened some people's eyes. You'll have seen all the memes. I posted one of like people totally ignoring politicians being elitist, but then as soon as footballers do, it's like, what? Actually, if it's got people talking about it and being angry about it, then that's a good thing. And also it's shown that getting angry about stuff and speaking up about it works. So in that respect, I'm pleased it's happened. I think it's disgusting that they wanted to go down that road. I completely agree with Alison that it's all money and greed. But I think 45 quid for a ticket to go and see a football match anyway is just pathetic. It's don't bring back the terraces, they're dangerous, but at least those times people could afford to go. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Also, like I'm over football now. I used to really, really support it, but it just got depressing. So now it puts me to sleep.
So
you mean Sunderland there? You're talking about Sunderland, not just football.
I mean football in general. The noise of football on the telly reminds me of a Sunday afternoon when I used to go to my nana's and have a Sunday dinner and my dad would watch a football and I'd curl up. It reminds me of that now, so just go sleep.
Ben, you haven't had it all easy being a Newcastle supporter, have you? It's I think if you look and I'm going to take no joy in this whatsoever. I say laughing.
I know what you're going to say.
No, but like you've had for years and years, you've had Mike Ashley. And like every awful thing that could possibly happen in Capital is like he renamed your stadium and things like that, and he tried to take away the identity of the club, and it's been run like a kind of section of Sports Direct for a little while, and on top of that, you've now got Steve Bruce in charge. Like, come on. Like, how much can you suffer? We might have dropped down a couple of leagues, but I'd rather that than have Steve Bruce back. But,
Or Steve.
So I'm sure you've got pretty strong opinions on this one.
Well, yeah, on Thursday night, was it Thursday night? Yeah, we had a People's Assembly meeting on democracy in football, and it was supposed to be about opposing the ESL, but then obviously in the time that they organised the meeting, it all fell apart. And one of the aspects of that, it was a really good meeting actually. It was really interesting. But we just did not have time to address all of the issues, because it's not really just about the European Super League. Obviously, it's like this has been building and building for decades, ever since the Premier League came about. Really, working class people have just been priced out. And I think what I didn't really get a chance to say in that meeting was that I think that the fundamental thing here is about ticketing and ticketed prices, because you can't have the atmosphere, you can't have all the things that I loved about football when I was little. And I talked about that Bobby Robson quote, where he says it's not about the directors, it's not about the people, the managers, it's not about even the players, it's about the feeling that you have, the pride in your club. And he describes that first moment when you walk up the stairs and you go into the ground and you see the turf, and then you just fall in love. And I can remember feeling exactly the same. And I said about my first kind of feeling like that, because first few years when I was 9, when I came from Sweden, I went straight to watch Newcastle United, and it was pretty bad. There was Bobby Shinton playing up front. It wasn't great, but so maybe I didn't feel in love then. But Keegan came along, and actually, thank you Southampton for that. But Keegan came along, and he in the first game that I went to, his first game was against QPR, and you had to queue to get in, and it was a really, really hot day. And imagine Keegan's debut. You could still get a ticket if you queued up, but you had to queue for about 3 hours to get in. So I got there at lunchtime in this sweltering heat, and eventually I got in. And I wasn't with my dad actually. I just went by myself, with some friends, and standing on the Gallagher and being kind of swayed around, and then Keegan scored, and like Keegan being the consummate, he just knew what to say afterwards. He said that the crowd sucked the ball in, and that was I remember hearing that when I was on the radio or whatever, when I was coming back, and just feeling that level of pride. And then I got in, and Trudy, my mum, will tell you this, that I got into the house and I was promptly sick everywhere. I just puked everywhere from the tension of the day. And then,
the tension. It wasn't alcohol, was it, Ben?
I was only like 12 or something.
Well, that's probably why you couldn't handle it.
Yeah, that's quite old to start. But yeah, so what I suppose the point is that a lot of people say, why do you waste this money on it? Why do you spend so much time with football, thinking about football? I mean, at least half of my brain is spent, over the years has been, thinking about football, and it's because of that. It's that kind of that original feeling of kind of falling in love with the club, and then you just can't leave it, and it's just awful. But it's horrendous watching somebody like Mike Ashley come along and really treat it apparently Mike Ashley bought some Adidas shares and then 3 days later sold them and made about 4 million quid or something. And he really wanted to do that with the club, but he's not been able to kind of shift it. And all of that stuff, about the advertising hoardings and renaming the ground, and you go into that ground and it's all kind of pipe music, and it's you go to the bar and you pay £6 for a plastic bottle of Carlsberg, and it's just awful the way that football fans have been treated. So it's not just about this, and I think that one thing that would be wrong would be to say, right, the enemy here are those 6 clubs and that's it. No, the enemy is the way that football has been completely trashed by a class of people that have used it to, to increase their profiles. Because it's not necessarily about making money, but it's about advertising and about all those things, that the prestige that comes with it. So I mean, football has been. I mean, Laura's right; it's been ruined, like absolutely wrecked. But there's still a little bit of me that wants to be there.
Yeah.
It's probably a bit of nostalgia though, because I remember like there was a period in my life where after seeing some really great footballers and stuff, and we saw like Sunderland go up under Peter Reid and Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips playing up front, and it was good. It still felt like football. There were still tackles going in and what have you. And I used to really love playing as well. And I think it was like in the mid noughties. I remember playing somewhere, and absolutely everyone was just throwing themselves around and diving about, and this had like the game had changed somehow, and I was like, I don't feel like this really fits in with what I think football is. And like we were the kind of people who would clatter each other and then pick each other up and just get on with the game, and it was just a foul, and then but like if you fouled someone, then they'd either be crying trying to get you sent off, or they'd be starting on you trying to have a fight, and it was all this like theatrical, awful game. And I kind of fell out of love with it a bit when I was watching a lot of professional cycling, where like there was a guy who would, during the Amstel Gold Race a couple of years ago, he crashed, he split one of his kidneys, and still 140 kilometres from the finish, rode to the finish, won the race, necked a pint of Amstel because they were sponsored by Amstel, and then his season was over because he had to have 3 months out because he'd split his kidney in half. And then you're seeing people falling around and stuff, and I just think, football, it's been a bit, money has kind of ruined it, like the idea of the honour had gone, I mean, that honour of, we used to love, at Sunderland, we used to love someone who'd have a tackle, like John Kay, when he broke his leg, he used to just clatter people, and then he broke his leg, and there's photos of him, and I was there as well, it was, and he pretended, as he was stretchered off, he was pretending to be rowing a boat.
I remember that.
As he was going off, everyone's like, what is this guy doing? And there's a picture of Gary Bennett who does all the stuff for Show Races in the Red Card, just laughing, absolutely laughing. Now imagine someone doing that now, it's like a Greek tragedy if someone like, trips over and splits a fingernail open, and but back then it was like pretending to row boats when your leg's smashed in 3 places,
One thing you should say though, Paul, because you and Laura have both been involved in this as well, is that there's also another side to it, which is that there's smaller clubs that have kind of like done incredible kind of things in terms of their politics and anti-racism initiatives and things like that. So you've got like, I mean, we've all kind of sponsored match balls for Durham City, for instance, and they've been sponsored by Kick It Out, and also by County Durham Anti-Racist Coalition. So that's brilliant, and I think everybody, and if it hadn't been for the pandemic, I think that would have really taken off. So hopefully we can revive something like that again. But there's also radical, clubs that have kind of tapped into radical politics. So there's Clapton FC, there's White Hawk, FC United, and so there is like this other thing that is emerging. And for about I did actually boycott Newcastle for a long time, when Mike Ashley took over. And I did sort of look around, the non-league scene, and went to watch a lot of Durham City games and things like that. And I really did enjoy that. And it is at that level, there's some really good things going on. So maybe there might be some, a kind of silver lining to all this, that people discover local football, and maybe one or two of those clubs can. We definitely need a club in the northeast, which is like those clubs that are in London, and there's, I think, White Hawks, maybe Brighton, but that kind of capitalizes on the fact that people want a different kind of club.
It's the St. Pauli of the North. Maybe we need. I don't know whether that's what Leanne's talking about as well. By the way, St. Pauli is the club logo is on the watch list for terrorism for, there's a thing that went around schools to say what the terrorist symbols are, and the left wing equivalent of a swastika was the St. Pauli FC logo, which is just like, it shows you where our country is at the moment, along with the vegan symbol and Greenpeace. So these false equivalents, and it's unbelievable.
They're just a brilliant club. I mean, Pauli are unbelievable. The things that they do. They've supported refugees. They're hugely anti-racist, and they're active about it as well. It's not just like this kind of sticker that they put on their shirts. Their fans do a hell of a lot. So yeah,
good club. Kat has been mentioning about the dangers at the moment for people. Kat's from the RMT, and the safety issues that people who work on maybe the London Underground or any other form of public transport at the moment, or any form of transport at all, the dangers that these big events are are putting their members at risk of at this current time, during the pandemic. And I suppose that's something, again, another group of workers that have been forgotten during this pandemic. It's interesting to think about that. Yeah, Alison?
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, well, there's quite a lot of different groups of workers, isn't there, that've been forgotten. I mean, they talk a lot about the retail people, all the people that work on the transportation, and also in restaurants and things like that are, a lot of them face abuse, and especially as people go out drinking and things like that. It's pretty terrible. The things they have to put up with, really. So yeah.
Oh, David Ray said there, Huddersfield Town managed to have a debt collection company as the match sponsors. Also the
wow.
The filters are on display, by the way. So, like, someone mentioned Arsenal earlier on, and it was star.
Yeah,
Al. Yeah. So that's what that is. If anyone's wondering, it's just we did get a bit of troll abuse, so we had to tighten up our filters a little bit. But you're allowed to say arse if you want.
The thing about especially in the first lockdown, how you kept seeing those pictures of the London Underground and being absolutely packed out, and that was horrible, really. But the fundamental reason for that is because a load of people in not just in London, obviously all over the country, but it was particularly bad in London, were felt that they had no choice but to go in, even though they knew it was not safe. So they would, they'd all be packing on the tubes and, putting themselves at risk. But I suppose like construction sites didn't close down. Lots of kind of, companies that are in the gig economy won't have shut their businesses down for lockdown, the thing is that is what modern capitalism is, and that is why it's so important. Where we started, which was to talk about trade unions and organising and making sure that there's higher levels of density within those kind of precarious jobs as well, because you can't really make, like when we're thinking about transport workers that have a very strong union, the RMT are very strong obviously on the London Underground, but they're still put at danger because people are felt like they're being forced to go in, and until we sort out the bigger problems of society and the fact that there is, all these different layers of workers who have no rights, those sort of things, they are going to be the ones that put themselves in danger. If you think about going on a construction site, you're kind of putting yourself in danger. Especially if you're in a bad construction site, you're putting yourself in danger every day. So I suppose for some of those people, they would be thinking, well, COVID's just another one to add to the list. But I mean, what a terrible indictment that is of our society.
Yeah, and I think Kat sums it up really well there, and she says it was appalling to see the government try to pit workers against other workers. So I've just noticed the time here, so I think we need to wind things up, don't we? It's getting to the time. We've had such good fun as well. Sorry if, and while Ben was making a really serious point there, I laughed. it was because Quantum Skyline had said it. I was surprised I hadn't filtered out the word Rangers. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But thank you everyone for watching. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do some closing comments, and I think I'll come to Alison first.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been really interesting. Yeah, interesting evening. Lots of debate and good topics. So yeah, thank you very much.
And is there anything you want to plug or anything like that coming up?
Yeah, I was going to say, keep following Save Our Socialists on Twitter and Facebook, and keep up to date with the suspensions, and hopefully we'll see more reinstated, and hopefully, we'll see Jeremy have the whip restored as well. So,
do you think that'll happen?
I hope so, but I don't know.
I'm going to say no. I don't think it is going to happen, but anyway, not under Starmer anyway. Yeah. I understand he's too busy pulling pints. Laura?
Just thank you to Ben and Alison for coming on. It's been really lovely. The topics we've talked about have been quite wide-ranging, so I'll sum up with collectivism is what it's all about. Find your community, find your people locally, and speak to them, and get involved in anything you can, and then that movement will spread, and the joy and the hope and the love will come with you, and we'll all join together to change this horrendous society we've got at the minute. And then who knows, one day maybe we'll change the world. Keep fighting, and just keep finding that hope wherever you can. And thank you.
And Laura's in the room next to me, and I'm thinking that she must have been on some sort of substance tonight to make such a happy and hopeful speech. So, maybe
you were delirium, Paul. I need to go bed.
Ben.
Thanks. It's been great. I really enjoyed it. I have unfortunately drank my supplies for tomorrow night, which is what I need to plug. So I'll need to go out and get some more beer. Tomorrow night we've got Pint in Politics, so I think you and Laura Paul are coming on, and I was kind of like thinking, I was planning the whole time, if you asked me anything nasty, then I would get you back tomorrow night, but it hasn't really been that, although apart from my mum coming on, obviously.
That wasn't our fault.
No, that's an occupational hazard. But I think it's been really good, and I suppose there'll be like a part 2 tomorrow on Pint in Politics, and I think Paul will get a bit more of a chance to have his say as well, instead of being the host kind of thing. And we might talk about Sunderland, maybe, I don't know.
We'll not bother.
But that's on at 8:00 tomorrow night. So every Sunday we have Pint in Politics, and it's on Socialist Telly, which you can find on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Brilliant. We're looking forward to that. Also, I'm gonna do something that's a little bit different. If you're listening on the podcast, you don't often get mentioned, but we do. Like this goes out as an audio podcast as well. So we hope you're enjoying it, and we do get enjoyed in countries all over the world. I think we're up to like 50 odd different countries, and unless people have got some really extreme proxies on, and it's actually just one person who's like listening from Moldova, or so we've got some really interesting people. So it's nice to mention you. I hope that you are enjoying it, and I hope you understand when we're talking about comments that are coming on the screen and stuff, because it must be a bit weird on the audio podcast on that one. Don't forget you can become a member of Socialist Think Tank. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 8:00. That'll be on Socialist Telly. I think we will share that as well on Socialist Think Tank. So let's have part 2 tomorrow, and I've just forgotten that I'm doing some technical things there that I've forgotten to do, but I will now tell everyone to wave. See you later, and
bye.
Thanks everyone for being involved.
Keep the red flag flying.